It's my pleasure to welcome you to really the first Ohio Public University Trustee Governance Symposium here in the state of Ohio. We're proud to be able to sponsor this and to bring you all together. And thank you so much for taking the time to join us this morning. We're hoping it's going to be a productive day. We have some excellent speakers and panels lined up, and there'll be ample opportunity for you to ask questions or make comments as we go through the course of the day. Before we start with all of the other aspects of the agenda, I wondered if you would all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First of all, I'd like to thank our great staff, the staff in my office, Jake and Lena, and all of the supporting staff here in the Senate and at Cap Square for helping us logistically put all of this together. This event has been in the planning stages for several months. As you can imagine, these things don't just happen. It took a lot of input and a lot of planning in order to make this work, and we did arrange for good weather for all of your travels, so that was really a win for us. And we'd also like to thank our friends from the Buckeye Institute who are sponsoring our refreshments in our lunch today. So can we give them a big round of applause? Greg Lawson and his team are in the back, and certainly if you, during the course of the day, thank them for their support. And they have some propaganda for you to pick up if you like as well. Our purpose today is really to facilitate growth in information and perspective on higher education. It's very important to the state of Ohio, as you all already know. We want to give you an opportunity to meet each other. We don't have all of the trustees from each institution clumped together in the same table. We specifically spread everybody out, so we hope you will introduce yourselves if you haven't already, and during the course of the day, get to know each other and maybe even talk about some issues in between speakers and maybe during the break. But it's also important for you to get to know the Senate. We play an interesting role, a unique role. The entire legislature does, of course, from a budgeting standpoint. But in the Senate, we enjoy some unique opportunities to engage in higher education. And we thought it would be good, rather than you just reading about us or having happenstance conversations occasionally with us, that you get to know Senate leadership and the committees that impact higher education here in the state of Ohio, in all of you. First thing I'd like to do is introduce some of my colleagues in the Senate. Some of them are here, some will come in later. George Lang. George, if you're here, raise your hand. Bill Reinecke's not here yet. Paula Hicks Hudson. Shane Wilkin. They must be in committee. Catherine Ingram. Niraj Antani, and Bob Hackett. I know Bob is here. Where's Bob? Raise your hand, Bob. Senator Bob Hackett there. We also have, and he will be here joining us later, is Tom Young, who is in the House Chairman of the Higher Ed Committee. We have Chancellor of our Higher Education, Randy Gardner. Where's Randy? Raise your hand. And we have the President of the Inter-University Council, Laura Lanise. Laura. And is Mike Duffy here? Mike is the Chancellor designate for higher education in Ohio, appointed by the governor recently. Let's welcome him. And is Sean Buskus here? Not yet, from the Attorney General's office. He'll be here with us shortly. Okay, so let's get started. I was thinking about a couple of months ago, what should the theme be for this gathering? And gosh, I think I came up with a dozen or so potential themes, ran them by a few people, and they gave most of them a thumbs down. That's my staff. They're very direct with me, which is good. But then I ran across a quote that apparently has been reported to be on, either was in his office or maybe still currently in his office, in Gordon Gee's office, a name that we're all familiar with here in Ohio. I'm not sure if this was his first task here or his second time here, but he apparently has a plaque behind his desk that says, quote, "If you don't like change, you'll like irrelevance even less." And I think that really kind of speaks to maybe a theme that we could adopt here. And the reason I like that is that really what we're going to be talking about today, and by the way, it's been reported by people who don't really read things very well, that this whole gathering was all about Senate Bill 83. You know, I would be happy to talk about it all day if you like, but that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about the future of higher education in Ohio and what are some of the issues that are being faced here. So we have to deal with change. We have to anticipate change and respond to it, hopefully in the best way possible. I was taking a stroll back through history recently to the late 60s. Some of us in this room remember those. A large number of people in this room have no clue what I'm going to talk about the late 60s. But I was thinking it must have been a very difficult time to be a trustee of a university. The late 60s were pretty tumultuous, as we remember and as you may have read. We had civil rights protesting going on. We had anti-war. Vietnam was not a very popular war. We were probably in the middle of the sexual revolution. There were sit-ins on campus. Remember some of those? We had draft card burning ceremonies on campuses. ROTC buildings were being jeopardized, let's say. Of course, we had the tragedy at Kent State. The drug culture was in full swing on campuses. Campus violence, dropping out, tuning in and dropping out was fashionable. And it was a lot of, obviously, because of the war and other issues, a lot of U.S. bashing that was going on. Those had to be very difficult times, certainly to be a president of a university, but also to be a trustee. But if you stop and think about what we're facing today, there's some differences, but I think in importance and in terms of the kinds of challenges that you all are facing, we all are facing in the state, they're as challenging, if not more. For example, you've all been talking in your boards about declining demographics. You know, virtually all the schools, there may be one or two exceptions in Ohio, are experiencing some declining student populations. There aren't enough high school graduates to go around these days. Major changes in workforce demands. We are spending in the legislature a ton of time. We've changed the names of our committees in both the House and Senate to now include workforce. And in the budget that was passed recently in July, we put a lot of resources and allocated a lot of appropriation to various aspects of supporting current workforce needs. We're dealing with historically high inflation, although compared to the 70s, many of us remember double-digit mortgage rates. It's when variable rate mortgages were invented because the traditional rates, the fixed rates, were so high. We have deep political divides in this country, and certainly Ohio's no exception. We're seeing it, as reported recently in some studies, a decline in racial tolerance. After all that we've done and all that we've tried to do in the last number of decades, we haven't made a lot of progress. Maybe the current methods aren't working. Of course, we're dealing with, and you are all dealing with, the post-COVID transition, and that affects just about everything. The emergence of online learning is a new factor, and it's not going to go away because COVID has gone away. It's here to stay, and we better figure out how to adapt to it. Aging campus infrastructures. How many of you have aging infrastructures? Just raise your hand briefly here, okay? I get out and talk to the presidents and many of the trustees, and, the long list of capital projects that will be requested is a very, very long list. It was recently reported that, and this is not just Ohio, it's just in general in the U.S., Jason Riley wrote a nice article in the Wall Street Journal last week citing some studies that have been done on a growing dissatisfaction with higher education for any number of reasons, whether it's outcomes, cost, maybe a combination of the two, and student debt. Yet at the same time, on the positive side, we have a growing demand for nursing. We certainly can't keep up with that. Engineering and computer science. We put a lot of money in the budget this past time and had lots of discussions about enhancing the outcomes for computer sciences particularly. We have, because of the workforce issues, we have students who might ordinarily go to a four-year program are now being siphoned away to work in the in-demand job force in other areas. Sometimes that's great, sometimes it's not. They might be diverted from doing something even better in life. We have gender issues on campus that you all are having to deal with. And inclusive in that is intersectionality. Now everybody's got something to complain about, and it's pretty tough for all of you to deal with, trying to anticipate what those are in dealing with all of the victims that now live on campus, to our surprise, and lots more. So these issues, and I think, place an enormous responsibility on all of you and your colleagues who are not with us today. You're the governing boards. And I can tell you that has been reported recently, and it's the most accurate reporting I've seen in a while, that the Senate takes its advice and consent of trustees very seriously. Okay, and that is accurate reporting, because we have been and we will continue to be, because it's important. It's like appointing the board of directors of a public company, right? It can't be done superficially. It has to be done with a good background and intelligence in the process. Because you all set the policy. You determine the strategic direction of your institutions, and you also are responsible to monitor performance and make sure that the taxpayers, and probably more importantly, the students, are getting the very best education for their time and money. I'm hoping that this symposium is also the beginning of a new relationship between you and, your colleagues who are not here, and the legislature. We do want to listen to you. We do want to be out in visiting campuses, and we're all trying to do that as much as we can. We only have 14, so it's a doable task. And the 23 community colleges, not to be forgotten, are also very important to us as well. But we want to have that relationship. We don't want to just be the ones who decide, advise, and consent on appointments or reappointments. We want to know, so that when budget time comes along, so that when other policy issues that might require legislative assistance is undertaken, that we know what we're talking about, and we are doing it on the basis of input and dialogue. And dialogue with the board of governors of each institution is very helpful. Not that we're looking to go around the presidents. We certainly support them and they need to lead the change in proposing policies and strategies to you for your approval. We also believe that firmly that in addition to higher education being so critical, to individuals, I don't think I have to convince anybody in this room the importance of education in determining the economic outcome for individuals. We all know, it's pretty well stipulated just about everywhere, that if you achieve certain levels of education, it's not necessarily a guarantee, but it is certainly a clearest ticket out of poverty, certainly, or if you're not impoverished, if you're in the middle class, it's your best ticket to get above that. And we know that that's a fact. But we also know that Ohio's economy depends on strong higher education and workforce development as well. We can't continue to attract great companies to come here, or great companies that are already here to expand in Ohio, if we don't offer the kind of educational experiences and offer them the students that are graduating that are fully capable in their fields, as well as their ability to think for themselves and to learn how to take positions, not that they have been the recipients of what they should be thinking. And we've talked quite a bit about that. So we have to embrace change. And I think that's our job in the legislature, and it's your job as the governing boards of the institutions. Some of your presidents might resist change. I can tell you, your faculty will definitely resist change. Okay, it's been my experience. But your students will be the ones who will benefit from your willingness to challenge the status quo and how things have always been done. We're not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are some good things that need to be maintained, but we also need to challenge ourselves, and you need to challenge your presidents and the rest of the staff at your institutions to think outside the box. What could we do differently? How do we respond to the changing needs of students and the businesses that are going to hire our students? So those are just some opening thoughts for you to think about for the rest of the day. And we'll be picking up on those themes in a number of areas shortly here.